still in central Pennsylvania. You never know what you might get. Friday and Saturday were absolutely lovely here at Maple Grove. Sunday morning couldn't have been nastier. But NHRA and the safety safari has prevailed. The rain has stopped, the track is dry, and the race will go on. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and the big story in Top Fuel coming into Maple Grove with 4 races to go. A quartet of drivers, realistically, with a shot at winning the Winston Championship. Let's check out round number 1 and see how they all fared. First up, it was Larry Dixon against Shelly Anderson. Shelly, who won this race in '93. Dixon, fresh off a victory at the U.S. Nationals. Dixon in the far lane. Shelly was in the near lane. Shelly had problems. Dixon was tickled with a 477.
Wow, what can I say? I mean, we haven't run a 470 since May, and to be able to do that first round, I mean, it just shows Western everybody's doing their job.
Get back in this points deal.
We're trying. That's all I can say about it. 1 round at a time.
Mike Dunn, number 3 in Winston points, met up with Kenny Bernstein in round number 1. Dunn also not all that impressive in qualifying. Dunn was in the far lane, Bernstein near. Kenny Bernstein daylighted Mike Dunn. That really hurts. Mike, when you're counting points, first round losses aren't much fun.
No, you can't win a championship doing this, but hey, the La Victoria team, we've had our ups and downs, and we'll bounce back. Just been a tough weekend for us, but we'll get it next time.
A little too cautious, maybe?
I don't know. We'll have to go back and look. We've been struggling this weekend. We've had some problems, and evidently we didn't get them fixed for this round. We'll check and see.
It was also Corey McClanathan up against Connie Coletta. Now, the elder Coletta had a chance to really help his son Scott, who came into Maple Grove only 25 points ahead of McClanathan. Coletta was in the far lane, Corey Mack near lane. Out of the blocks, it was Connie away first. The problem set in immediately. Corey McClanathan, a 482 and a whopping 305 miles an hour. Running on pace with Coletta.
Getting awful interesting, isn't it? I'll tell you, my nerves are racking pretty hard, but I know you just got to keep going round by round. You can't take anybody for granted. Racing Connie, Grandpa, the guy I'm trying to gain in points lead, makes it tough.
Well, what about Scott Coletta himself? Well, he was up against Jack Ostrander. Ostrander had problems. Starting line shut him off. Coletta had a single, which netted a 483 at 303 miles an hour. 1 year ago, you strangled the field here with low 4-second elapsed times, big 300-mile-an-hour speeds. Are you on to that again?
Who knows? I mean, we're just taking it 1 run at a time and hope that what we think it's going to do, it does. Lately, it ain't been doing that, so your guess is as good as mine.
As we look at the pairings for round 2, notice the 3 top points earners that survived round 1 stay apart. But we could be headed for a head-to-head confrontation between Scott Coletta and Corey McClanathan in the semis if it all works out. But there's one car they better all try to stay away from, and that is Blaine Johnson, Santa Maria, California, round number 1, Maple Grove track record, 4.72 seconds. Here's Ralph Shaheen with a funny card tale.
Steve, last year at the Keystone Nationals, John Force was definitely the big dog. He was consistently running in the 5.0s, and he even got his first 300-mile-an-hour run right here at Maple Grove. Well, naturally, everybody figured here in 1995, John Force would once again be the guy to beat. However, in qualifying, he wasn't up to snuff. He could only muster up a 5.17 on this fiery run. Now, it wasn't a normal John Force cooker. He didn't burn it to the ground, but it was enough to hamper the performance of the car. The problem for John Force was not the fire. The problem instead was an O-ring, just like this one here. What happened? It came apart like this and blocked the fuel lines. All these little pieces got in there, inhibiting the flow of the fuel, and that caused the performance to go away for Force. Once the crew got all those pieces out of the car went right back to its performance standards. In round number 1, John Force ran a 5.07, 298 miles per hour, right where everybody expected John Force to be. That 5.07 will give John Force and his hard-working crew lane choice in round number 2 when they match up against Whit Bazemore. Let's check now with Bob Fry, who's in the Pro Stock pits.
Ralph, I'm over here in the pit area of Steve Schmidt, engine builder to the stars, and I say that because 6 of the 16 qualified cars in this field were powered by Steve Schmidt Motors. It's so very important to have a lot of power in this class. After all, the quickest pro stock field ever was nestled in just 9/100ths of a second. Now, into that first round, Steve Schmidt would meet one of the guys running his engine. Ray Franks would foul out in the first round. That would send Steve into round number 2. Ironically enough, half of his engines advanced into the second round as both Mark Osborne advanced and George Marnell. All 3 of the cars ran 709s in round number 1. And as they go into the second round play, it'll be the Steve Schmidt cars against the Pontiac machines and Warren Johnson.
Okay, thanks, Bob, for the Pro Stock story. Now, round 2. Top Fuel. As I said, head qualified number 10, ran a 487, even better than he qualified with to beat Ron Capps in round number 1. Scott Coletta qualified number 2, a 479, just second to Blaine Johnson's 472. He beat Jack Ostrander in round number 1. Dick LaHaye, the crew chief, looking on Scott Coletta's car.
You know, Steve, to comment on what you were saying about the rain, most of the racers will tell you that Mother Nature is the best at conditioning a racetrack you'll find anywhere.
Couldn't agree more. Jim Head looking for the upset of the year in many ways. Certainly, this would be his proudest moment if he could put away Scott Coletta and be a spoiler in this Winston title chase for $200,000. Both drivers pre-staged. Head smokes the tire. Scott Coletta goes on to win it. A steady pace, 481. 298 miles an hour. Head coast across at 497, 284. Stay with us, everybody. We're going to be back to Maple Grove. These dedicated race fans waited out the rain. Hey, you can stay with us, too. We're back in Berks County, Pennsylvania, the home of many of the Pennsylvania Dutch, very industrious people. Here's 2 very industrious racers as round 2 of Top Fuel continues. Larry Dixon, the wonderkin of 1995 against Pat Austin.
Well, the U.S. Nationals winner qualified 5th with a 483, came back and ran a 477 to beat Shelly Anderson in round 1. Pat Austin qualified 13th with a 495. He ran a 557 in round 1 to put Eddie Hill on the trailer at 180 miles an hour. So he's really going to have to get back on his pace, Steve, if he wants to get past Larry Dixon.
Well, in his last season of driving here at Maple Grove in '94, Don the Snake Prudhomme had very parallel success. Different race car, though, same mentality. Wes Cerny loves cool weather, high humidity, and a cloud-filled sky. The Austins right now, well, they just like to get to the finish line first over anybody. It's been a horrible season for them in Top Fuel.
Pat only has one final round appearance, Steve, and that was at Sonoma.
And he lost that one. Pre-staged, Dixon's in. Austin had the whole shot, but it lasted about a half a second. Oh my! Dixon steps up the pace. 474, 297 miles an hour. What a nice pass. Larry Dixon suddenly looms as a favorite here in Reading.
Well, here's our next pair. Blaine Johnson's going to go up against the Budweiser king of Kenny Bernstein, who's having a pretty good weekend for a pretty inconsistent season. But there is what everybody likes. Dark clouds means lots of good air, Steve.
And let's just hope those are dry clouds, if you know what I mean. We were impressed when Blaine Johnson qualified number 1 at 478. He really got a retention round 1 at 472, 304 over Bob Vandegrip Jr. Kenny Bernstein likes to call himself the king of speed. Here's the fastest speed ever at 314. Qualified number 9 at a 486, but had a 485 when he put away Mike Dunn in round number 1. Boy, that hurt Dunn in the points. Bernstein, Dale Armstrong, his crew, trying all kinds of things to get this car consistently in the 470s. Haven't been able to do it. Alan Johnson has. And a lot of that success are cylinder heads of his own manufacturer. Blaine Johnson away first. Blaine Johnson to the finish line first. 477, 294, but it was not problem-free. Bernstein 482 at 291.
Steve, there were lots of problems for Kenny Bernstein on this run. First of all, he was slow out of the lights on 529 to a much quicker 472 for Blaine Johnson. But watch Bernstein's car as he makes his way down the left lane. There is a bump on that side of the racetrack. The Budweiser King did not get through it smoothly. Look at the car hopping right there. Front wheels coming right up off the ground. Bernstein only musters up a 482, 291, 477, and a 294 for Blaine Johnson. Our last pair is ready to go. Tommy Johnson Jr. in the Mopar car found out just recently Mopar is going to be leaving him, going to Mike Dunn. Surprising news there. He hopes to pick up some new sponsorship quickly, one of the sport's bright young stars. Corey Mack is secure with McDonald's, and he's going to be going up against Johnson in this round.
Corey qualified number 3 at an 81. As we showed you, he took out Connie Coletta round 1. Tommy qualified only at 484, but ran a stunning 479 round 1 to beat Joe Amato. And here's the high mom cam. Mom, of course, in Ottumwa, Iowa. Tommy Johnson Jr., he can tell you about 5 Gs. Plants that helmet in the roll cage. If the motor breaks, the blower belt comes off, your head comes forward and about hits the dashboard. Now, right now, Corey McClenathan says, Scott got through round 1. I've got to keep pace with him. If he doesn't, he'll go down another 20 points towards the Winston Championship. And no one would like to rob him of that opportunity more than TJ in the far lane.
He really would. He's only had one final round appearance this year, Steve. That came at Brainerd, which he lost.
Whoa! They were dead even at about 1,000 feet, but the big power in the Corey Mack car pulls it out at 484, 303 to a 506 at only 249.
Well, TJ's known to be a pretty good lever. With a 480, he was right on the mark. Corey Mack was a little bit quicker, though. A 463 got Corey Mack out of the blocks and down the racetrack. Tommy Johnson's car started to go away at the halfway point. He could muster up nothing better than a 506 at 249. Well, Corey Mack thundered to a 484, 303. The final 4, Larry Dixon against Blaine Johnson, with Dixon getting the lane choice. And Corey Mack will go up against Scott Coletta. Coletta gets the lane choice as they battle for the Winston Championship. If Corey can win this round, they will be virtually deadlocked for the title. Chuck Etchells backs into the lights as we get set for this look around number 2 of Funny Car. Here was the point standings coming into Maple Grove. Force has pretty much locked up the title once again, and now Hoffman and Pedregon are going to battle it out for second place. And Chuck Etchells can make a good run maybe for third.
Etchells hasn't won since October of '93. Del Worsham was NHRA's Rookie of the Year in 1992 and has not won an event since then. His father, Chuck, one of the most able crew chiefs you'll find, along with, of course, with Tim Richards. They call him the General. Took Joe Amato to 5 Winston Top Fuel Championships. Would like to do the same for Chucky E.
He's had a unique season, Chuck Etchells. He's had 2 #1 qualifying spots and 1 final round appearance, which he lost. But when he's not doing that, his performance has been way off.
The kid away first. On board with Chuck. And you win. Etchells a 525 at 288 miles an hour. Del Worsham can't afford to blow anything up. He felt it going bad and clicked it to only 253 miles an hour.
Well, maybe Chuck Etchells is going to have one of those days where he runs pretty good, because he gets out of here a little bit slower than Worsham, but not bad. A 512 for Etchells, a 498 for Worsham. But as they march down the racetrack, Chuck Etchells gets into race-winning form. A 525, 288 for Etchells, a 546 at 253 for Worsham.
Kenji Okazaki deals in American muscle cars in Tokyo, Japan, gets a lot of frequent flyer miles. Dean Scusa, native of the Cleveland area, the Mecco Tools Pontiac, he and his dad, Don and Lance Larson, they have a heck of a lot of fun racing, and not every team can say that. Scusa qualified 3rd at a brilliant 517, but then fell off 3/10 when he beat Gary Densham with a 48. Ooh, Big Jim, not going to be happy with that one. Get ready, Kenji. It is Dean Scusa going to the final 4 at 534, a bit of an improvement, and almost no speed, 272. John Forrest, who has lower laps time of the event after that 507 round 1 win over Gary Clapshaw. Whit Bazemore qualified number 12, ran a much better though, 521 to beat Jim Epler in round 1. Anytime Whit Bazemore goes to the starting line, he is capable of winning. I'm not saying he always does, but he is capable of it.
He's had a fairly off and on season so far, Steve. He hasn't made it into the final round. He hasn't qualified number one. But Whit Bazemore, like you said, has been there in the thick of competition, and he's not one of those cars that you can take lightly, and John Force definitely knows that.
Dean Scusa mentioned all the clutch problems the nitro cars are having. That also can be an equalizer. You're never really sure when those problems may attack you. It's like a virus in your computer. You just don't know when it's going to pop up. Oh, Force already backpedaling that Pontiac, and he does it brilliantly to a 5:20. Force saved that run. 295 miles an hour. That car would have smoked the tires without a John Force at the controls.
That's exactly right, Steve. We talked about the virus of the clutch. Doesn't matter when you have a really good doctor at the controls. And that's exactly what John Force did on this run. He is on it. He knows exactly what that car is doing. This is nothing but seat-of-the-pants driving by an expert at the controls, such as John Force. He pedals the car down the racetrack to a 5:20, 295 to make it on to the next round.
Pedregon qualified number one at a 5:08, beat Tom Hoover round one. His opponent, Al Hoffman, ooh, he looks tough, doesn't he? Qualified number 8, beat Gary Bolger in round number 1. Tom Anderson and his crew putting finishing touches on the Pontiac Firebird of Al Hoffman. You're on board with Al. You see the handbrake. He's got it with his right hand. There's no foot brake in these cars.
You know, last year, Steve, Al Hoffman lost in round number 1 to Whit Bazemore, and he's really struggled at this racetrack over the years. He's never won here.
And this is a brand new car, replacing the one that was so bent up with a number of wheel stands. Pedregon last in. Good race. Cruz Pedregon at 5:13, so close to 300. 299.20. Al Hoffman at 5:18, but the difference was more than it should have been. Pedregon had a huge advantage off the starting line. Hoffman just a little disgusted inside that car.
Well, the frustrations of Maple Grove continue for Al Hoffman. Cruz Pedregon gets out of the gate quicker with a 481 to a 510 for Hoffman. And what looked to be a good drag race all the way down the racetrack was just not good enough for Al Hoffman. Bob Brandt, Larry Frazier had that McDonald's car tuned up nicely, and Cruz drove it to the win. Well, that win will help Cruz in the chase for maybe position number 2 in the Winston Championship, but he's going to have to match up against John Force in the Final Four. Cruz will get lane choice. On the other side, Dean Scusa and Chuck Etchels will go at each other, and Etchels will have the lane choice.
Coming sideways out of the water, the factory hot rods, the pro stock cars. 2 weeks ago, Warren Johnson won the U.S. Nationals. His closest pursuer in points, Jim Yates, won out the first round. And as far as I'm concerned, that put a lock on it. His third Winston title will be Warren Johnson's a few weeks from now out in Pomona, California at the Winston Select Finals. Well, here is the masonry contractor from Las Vegas, George Marnell, who is running, well, almost as well as Warren Johnson these days, up against Chuck Harris, who is kind of a pseudo teammate of Jim Yates. Crew Chief Dick Maskin tries out a lot of things on Harris's car. If they work, they end up on the McDonald's Pontiac. And his opponent, as I said, George Mornell and Kite. He's a huge masonry contractor. His partner Kite is a glass contractor. Between the two of them, they put up about most of the major hotels in Las Vegas. But the strip that is on George Marnell's mind right now is the one laying in front of him. 1,320 feet. The Grove, one of the oldest drag strips in the Northeast. Marnell qualified number 4 at a brilliant 7:03. Harris number 5, also at a 7:03. Quickest pro stock field in history. Marnell, red lights. Marnell rolled the dice and lost. Chuck Harris idles through it at 7:75. Let's have another look at the red light.
Well, and it's too bad that he red lighted too, Steve, because Chuck Harris had some problems down the racetrack that might have made the difference for Marnell. You can see just a little too quick off the line. He gets the red light, and Harris takes off. Down the racetrack, though, Harris had his problems, and it might have set him up for a win if Marnell had been able to hang in there. As we look at the next pair, here's Steve.
You know, Chuck, we don't talk to many pro stock drivers that win with a 7:75. You got a little lucky.
I got real lucky, I would say. I think I got a little off to the side. Got a little squirrely, and then I saw I had the win light. He red lit, and so I got out of it.
Congratulations, final 4 bound.
The next pair is going to be Larry Morgan in the Castrol Super Clean entry going up against the Cowboy, Mark Powick. Larry Morgan qualified number 6 with a 7:04, ran a 7:07 in round number 1 to beat Ricky Smith. Powick qualified 14th, got around Kurt Johnson in round number 1 with a 7:14.
In fact, let's go back and have a look at this one. It was a dandy. Powick in the near lane, Kurt Johnson far side. Powick was away first, and it was a good thing because his 7.14 beat Kurt Johnson's quicker 7.11. It still takes a race car driver to get him down the drag strip. Okay, what's going to happen here? Can Powick pull another hole shot off against Morgan? Morgan over the far lane, the purple car. Let's see. They left with identical reaction times. Morgan a little squirrely, and that opened the door for Mark Powick. Morgan had some problems over that bump Ralph talked about earlier. A 7:13 for Powick puts away a 7:15 for Morgan.
The reaction time out of the box was absolutely identical, a pair of 4:51s. But watch that left lane as we start to make our way down past the halfway point. The cars are basically dead even. It's going to come down to driver's skill and ability here. Morgan's car gets a little light, a little loose over the rise here, and it starts to dance around on him a little bit. That slows Morgan down enough for Powick to get the win.
It is Jim Yates, far lane. This is round 2, pro stock action. Mark Osborne, very quiet young man, but very intense. Concentrates totally and completely on that Christmas tree, and that's what you've got to have in pro stock racing. Mark Powick has already proven that. Osborne, a huge advantage. Is it insurmountable? Yes, it is. The driver wins it, and this is going to make Yates really sick. Osborne runs 7:10. Yates loses at 7:06.
Well, where do you find it here? How about on the reaction time? A 4:16 for Osborne to a sleepy-eyed 4:80 for Jim Yates. The difference at the far end of the racetrack was just 27 thousandths of a second. That made the difference with Osborne going on to the next round. Well, the end of Jim Yates' chances for the title pretty much locks the title down for Warren Johnson. So that's got to be a big release of pressure for him. Warren Johnson, a 2-time winner here at Maple Grove.
And he has 3 6-second runs this weekend, the best being a 6:98, ran a 7:03 to whip up on Buddy Ingersoll in round 1. Now, Steve Schmidt qualified number 8 at a 7:04, beat Ray Franks in round number 1. Let's remember the rain-delayed final at the Oldsmobile Spring Nationals this year, Columbus, Ohio. These two met, and Steve Schmidt hole-shotted Warren Johnson and put him away. Johnson still smarting from that one. And doing double duty this weekend is crew chief Greg Anderson is home in Georgia ill. Greg, we hope you're feeling better soon. Ooh, Steve Schmidt moves too soon. A red light, automatic disqualification. Warren Johnson cruises into the final 4 with a 7:06, 195 miles an hour. Gordo likes that one. In fact, let's have another look at the red light of Steve Schmidt. Remember that a .40 is a perfect light because there is 4/10 between yellow and green. This was a .32, and that is a flat-out gamble, trying to anticipate the lights.
Well, the final 4 are set for the Pro Stock cars here at Maple Grove. Mark Powick against Mark Osborne, with Osborne getting the lane choice. And Chuck Harris going up against the Professor, with WJ getting the lane choice in that one. Here's Steve.
With the exception of yourself, the top half of this field has just fallen apart.
Well, Steve, you know how that goes some days when everybody's running in this performance parameter. You get to the right side, the adrenaline's up, red lights happen, you get crossed up, things happen, and just we concentrate on our own race and try not to bother looking at what else is going on around us because it distracts us.
Very nice 7:06.
Thank you very much.
So Warren Johnson continues to march on through the field here at Maple Grove. And look at the people that stuck around through the rain today. Think they love their drag racing in Pennsylvania? You know it. Stay with us. We're coming back.
Warren Johnson back in his pro stock pits. Bob Fry is there to find out more about the problems Warren faces without his crew chief Greg Anderson, who, as we told you, is a bit under the weather.
Warren Johnson doing real well considering that Greg Anderson's not around this weekend. First of all, how is Greg?
Greg's feeling better. We sure could stand him being here because we made a few faux pas out here, but we're running well enough that if we keep our heads screwed on straight, I think we can get to the final.
Who is basically taking his place this weekend? Anybody, Warren? Or is it a committee?
It's a committee. Decision by committee here. And Greg's in contact with her, faxing him information back and forth and whatnot. He's not here in body, but he's definitely here in spirit.
And that spirit's making this car go very quickly.
You know, it's always tricky being a crew chief, making a guess on how to set those cars up. It's got to be even tougher trying to set the car up from a hospital bed.
I'll tell you how important this top fuel race is. Even the sun has shown up. It is Corey McClanathan against Scott Coletta. If Corey can put away the younger Coletta, the top fuel Winston points chase will be virtually deadlocked. 15 races, 15 national events have come before Maple Grove, and the pressure just continues to build, especially on these two drivers. The race cars have been performing almost identically, and I think they know that win or lose, the responsibility is going to fall on the shoulders of the driver himself. Earlier, Ralph Shaheen told us, well, what it's like for these guys.
This next round of top fuel eliminations is extremely important in the chase for the Winston Championship crown. You see, Scott Coletta and Corey Mack are separated by just over 1 round's worth of points. So the crews naturally are working feverishly, getting their machines ready for this all-important round of eliminations. Well, how about the drivers? Scott Coletta's just being calm, being cool, watching TV, trying to stay relaxed. Corey Mack, on the other hand, is out here with the crew. What do you do in between rounds to get ready for a big race like this?
Well, the drivers don't do much. I take care of fuel and try to help the guys when they need it. Depends on what's going on. If we hurt a motor or something, I help them sling another one in there. But most of all, I like to stay busy because if I sit around, I think about what's going on with the points chase. And if I keep busy, next thing you know, we're in the car ready to go.
He seems calm, cool, and collected, but you can be sure the RPMs inside the body are raving right now.
Are you kidding? He's on the limiter. Corey Mack in the far lane, Scott Coletta in the near lane. Crew Chief Dick LaHaye for Scott Coletta, Lee Beard for McClanathan. Oh boy. Oh boy, that one didn't let anybody down. Almost identical reaction times, no advantage there. Coletta simply outpowered him. A 4.81 to a 4.86.
And that's exactly how this type of a race should be decided. Both drivers doing their job, both cars doing their job. If one came down to brute horsepower at the far end of the racetrack, that's where Scott Coletta really got up on top of everything inside that engine for a 481, 303 mile an hour pass to McClanathan's 486, 301. And Dick LaHaye watches and cheers his driver on as they know they're going to the finals, Steve.
What a treat that was to watch.
Oh, I tell you, I love it. Couldn't happen. It's perfect, you know. Corey and me are buddies, and we both knew it was going to be war.
You protected your turf. That's what you were out to do.
Yep, you know, you gotta do that, man.
Well, I tell you, shame there had to be a loser in that one.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Well, we got one half of the final pair set. Larry Dixon is going to try to be the other one, and he's going to have to get past the Travers Tool car of Blaine Johnson. Well, Corey Mack didn't get into the finals, but he does get to talk to Steve.
Corey, I know it's tough to swallow right now, but that was just a brilliant drag race.
Yeah, it's pretty good, wasn't it? You know, it's a good thing me and Scott are friends. This is tough out here, you know. It's really tough. And, you know, there's 3 races left, and I've been behind for more than this, and we'll catch them.
Corey knows all about being behind in the points and chasing for a title. He lost to Joe Amato in '92 by less than a round. So the U.S. Nationals winner of Larry Dixon coming up against Blaine Johnson, who is still unbelievably looking for a first win.
He has 6 pole positions this season. In fact, he jokingly says Budweiser is his associate sponsor. He's collected $24,000 in bonus qualifying cash from the brewery. Now, this is a pick'em deal right now. If this new motor performs for these guys, they've got a shot. I'm talking about Blaine Johnson, near lane. Problems for Blaine Johnson. The motor just eating itself alive. Larry Dixon, whoa, playing hardball now. 475 at 295 miles an hour. Blaine just stumbles across at 175.
Watch what happens to Blaine Johnson's car. You can see the engine will start to drop cylinders. As soon as that happens, things go bad to worse inside the engine, and the Travers Tool car comes apart at the engine bay. Larry Dixon, on the other hand, what a performance for the Miller Genuine Draft Driver. A 475, 295 miles an hour. He is right on his game. And he might be just what Corey Mack needs to keep alive in the championship. Here's Steve.
Well, in this sport, there is no such thing, I guess, as the perfect run, but that was awfully close, a 475.
Well, there you go. I mean, all the guys at the back of the car, Miller team, they're doing a great job, and I'm just hanging on, just trying to get her down the track.
3 470s in eliminations.
It ain't bad. I'm glad it's coming from this car if it's coming from any.
Phoenix, Gainesville, Englishtown, Indianapolis, all wins, maybe Maple Grove. What a season for Larry Dixon.
Back at the Pioneer Keystone Nationals, it's Final Four time for the Pro Stockers. The Summit Oldsmobile of Mark Powick. Powick only this far in eliminations due to his driving ability, and the same thing can be said for the man here in another Oldsmobile, that is Mark Osborne. They have both been, well, kind of red light bandits, Ralph Shaheen.
They've been absolutely phenomenal behind the wheel. Both of these drivers coming into this show having some pretty strong cars and having had strong performances over the course of the season. But it's great to see them showing that this day it's all driver ability.
You know, we have seen very few, if any, starting line games being played by the Pro Stock Group. They're kind of famous for that intimidation factor on the starting line. Let's see what happens here with Powick and Osborne.
Well, this is the class that wrote the book when it comes to staging duels.
All right, they're both pre-staged. Who's going to break? You never know how deep-seated some of these things are. Ooh. Osborne's in. Starter Rick Stewart bobbing his head in his hand. Counting down Powick. Powick got in just under the wire. Oh, could you tell who won at home? And neither could we. But NHRA can tell us it was Mark Powick. Powick was 0.003 of a second quicker. 7:14.6 to 7:14.3.
Boy, when they start playing staging games like that, that always makes me nervous because sometimes you can put yourself right out of the game by trying to play one. And I thought maybe it was going to bite Mark Powick. Not a chance on this day. He gets the whole shot on Osborne, and then at the far end of the racetrack, Powick runs a 7:14 at 192 miles an hour to get the win, with the whole shot making the advantage for Powick. Here's Steve.
Powick came out of the car screaming, man, I love this sport. Yeah, you love it when you're going to the finals.
Well, it's about time, Steve. And since Memphis, we've struggled and only been past first round twice, and what a way to come back towards the end of the season.
What a drag race that was.
Boy, it was close. I saw him coming on me. I knew it was close, and our Summit Racing Olds, Dave Butner tune, got us to the final.
Itty-bitty hole shot won it for Mark Powick.
Well, the Cowboy was a winner earlier this year in Memphis, maybe again today in Maple Grove. So Warren Johnson and Chuck Harris now get set to go at it. There's Kurt Johnson, son of WJ, opening the door, helping to clear out some of the smoke for his father. Professor getting set, a two-time winner here. Now there's Jim Yates. You might remember we said Jim Yates is sort of a pseudo teammate to Chuck Harris. They try things out on Harris's car, and if it works, they move it over to Yates' car. Maybe they should do it the other way around today.
Oh, absolutely. Big old Chuck Harris. What a nice guy. Just loves to drag race. Doesn't do it for any other reason. And how fortunate he was to tie in with Jim Yates and especially Dick Maskin. Because Maskin, I don't think anybody knows more about these power plants than Maskin. And right now they're hoping that WJ gets his Sunday ruined by one Chuck Harris. Harris moves up there very gentlemanly, puts on the lights.
We probably won't see the same staging battle here, I don't think. That's not WJ's game.
No, it really isn't. But what do we know? A whole shot for Harris, but it wasn't a big enough one. WJ 7:05, the class of the field, to Chuck Harris's very game 7:09.
Well, this one was all horsepower is really what this one came down to. Chuck Harris did the best he could at the starting line, got a pretty good hole shot on Johnson, but as they started to motor down the racetrack, the Oldsmobile power plant and Warren Johnson's machine really came to life, and a 705, 195 miles an hour is enough to send Warren Johnson to his 8th final round appearance. Watch Jim Yates. He knew out the starting line things were looking good, but oh, down at the far end of the racetrack, it was not what Jim Yates' wife Tony wanted to see. So Mark Powick and Warren Johnson will battle it out for the finals here at the Pioneer Keystone Nationals.
Well, when you popped it into second gear, you were gone with the 705.
05, I can't believe we got to the finish line. That thing started bouncing, jumping up and down. It was against the rev limiter in the lights. It had to be at about 9,800 in the lights because it was against the limiter. I can't believe I won that thing.
They're all trying to hole shot you. Mark Powick will in the final. You know that.
Well, they have to do what they have to do. You got to give them credit for that. They're trying just as hard as we are.
We're back at the Pioneer Keystone Nationals, and the youngster going up against the veteran Chuck Hetzel's the Kendall GT1. Dodge Avenger, the body up, standard operating procedure, a little adjustment to the idle being made on the left-hand side, making sure the fuel pumps are all the way on, there's no blockage there. Don Scusa, Dean's dad. Lance Larson, the crew chief, big guy with his arms folded towards the back of the car. Let's ride with Chuck Hetzel.
This is also part of the country where Dean Scusa's crew chief comes from, and he knows a lot about setting up a race car for this racetrack.
Did you notice the limited visibility through the windshield of Hetzel's car? They're flying blind in a lot of ways. Dean Scusa loses traction. You and Chuck Hetzel have just gone to the final round at a 5:26, certainly consistent, 287 miles an hour. Scusa had a great reaction time, but just instantly smoked the tires, and those are the unpredictable clutches everybody is dealing with.
And our next pair is already getting set. Of course, it will be Cruz Pedregon going up against John Force. And this, a lot of people would have thought would have been our final, but they were on the same side of the ladder today. Oh, and side-by-side burnouts. Isn't that great? We haven't had a chance to see that too often today. Let's go down now to the far end of the racetrack. Here's Steve with Chuck Hetzel's.
Now, earlier I told Chuck I didn't think 520s would get him into the final round. Hey, so I was wrong.
That's unusual. You're usually right, I'm usually wrong, but I'm glad you were wrong and we were right.
A little distracted maybe on the starting line, but slow reaction time.
No, not really. I was just trying not to make a stupid mistake, and starters today seem like they've been holding us there a little bit longer, and I said, boy, I'm not going to jump. I know Scusa's been having killer lights, 450s, 460s. Take my hat off that whole team over there. They're great guys.
Chuck Hetzel, as you can see, has not had a win since 1993. Boy, could he use one of those here today. John Force wins. Not much of a problem for Force. He's got 6 victories to his credit in 1995, but Cruz Pedregon's no slouch. She's got 4, including the last one at the U.S. Nationals.
And that's the big one that John Force let get away. Larry Frazier, motorman for Cruz Pedregon, the Joe Gibbs team. Joe Gibbs, maybe he doesn't work on the motors, maybe he doesn't paint the cars, but he has a huge impact. You heard Corey McClenathan's attitude about the rest of the season, even though he lost. That's Gibbs, and he's instilled that kind of determination in Cruz Pedregon. Whoa, Force deep stage is a little trick. John Force will go to the final round for the second year in a row at 5:20, but that's deceiving. It would have been quicker had he not deep staged. 296 miles an hour. Pedregon's car just didn't have it, frankly.
How about John Force digging deep down into the bag of tricks from the old wily veteran, and he deep stages Cruz Pedregon, and that caught Cruz up just enough to allow Force to get the win. But watch the pipes on the right. See it belching and shooting things out of the side? He did hurt the motor. So Force's crew is going to have to go to work on that car because they've got Chuck Hetzel's in the final with Force getting lane choice, Steve.
John Force, you're like an old bull. When you see red, you go after it. You deep staged every trick in the book.
I love that kid and I love eating McDonald's, but I love Pontiac and my boys more in Castrol. And
Yeah, I went. I put in deep, and I could no coil was thinking, what the hell is he doing? He's going to drive through her. Just wanted to get the edge. I thought we both might run a number, but she hunted around, did her thing. Boy, them old points are looking a little sweeter here, Stevie.
And you got lane choice, buddy.
Well, she didn't run like she should have, and it got loose at the other end, but hey, it's a drag race, and he's a heck of a guy, Cruz is.
Pro stock racing in Pennsylvania is always interesting. So that's just to get you warmed up for this final round of Pro Stock. Mark Powick, who has hole shotted his way through 3 rounds up against Warren Johnson, who has simply out-muscled the competition. WJ, the Professor, the GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile over the far side, the Summit Oldsmobile of Mark Powick, near lane.
Well, now, WJ said to us in the last time down with you at the far end of the racetrack, he knows that Powick's going to try to get him on the lights. So maybe a staging battle to offset that?
WJ wasn't playing the game. WJ bumps Powick with a 7.06, 195 miles an hour. You can bet that one's for Greg Anderson. Johnson, look at his reaction time. WJ, is that a typo? No, a 4.1, almost a perfect light.
Well, he knew that he was going to have to be good on the lights because Powick definitely is. But WJ, wow, that's probably one of the best lights he's ever had. A 4.14 to a 4.40 for Mark Powick. Powick has problems. Johnson Motors on a 7.06, 195 miles an hour. A great run for the Professor.
You were wired to that Christmas tree, a 4.14 light.
Well, we knew Mark is hungry. He's been having excellent lights all day. We've been having mediocre lights all day, so I had to do my part because the crew sure did theirs.
You wanted a 6 to polish him off with. You didn't get it, 7.05.
It won. That's all that matters. That's a big part of it. 6 would have been fine, but the winning is more important.
Well, the one thing that happens when you win is you add to your points total. 1,403 for WJ, 1,208 for Jim Yates. That title is going to go to Warren Johnson in Pomona.
Can John Forrest, the Winston Funny Car points leader, win in Funny Car? Even when we get to Top Fuel, Scott Coletta has a shot, so all 3 of them could advance their leads. We're on board with Chuck Etchels. Etchels, who is, you talk about hungry, he hasn't won since that weekend in 1993 when he became the first into the 4s and picked John Force's pocket for about $25,000. Force is like an elephant, he don't forget. Let's just lay out and watch. And welcome to the world of outlaws. No, I'm sorry, NHRA Championship Drag Racing sideways style. Chuck Etchels has broken the drought. Tim Richards, his wife Shelley, huge celebration. And it was in, well, atypical style. John Forrest, first to lose traction. He's the master at pedaling. Maybe the past master. Watch Etchels.
Don't tell me these guys don't drive these race cars. Watch the flames. Look at the tire smoke. These guys are on and off the throttle all the way down the quarter-mile racetrack. And look at the angles of the noses of the cars. Force has got his Castrol machine pointed every way but straight. And Etchel's car may be easier to pedal because it doesn't have quite the horsepower as Force's entry. Unbelievable bits of driving by these 2 masters of funny car racing. On board, listen. Look at how the nose danced around on Chuck Etchels. The hand comes up as he reaches for the chute and the win.
This is your funny car champion, Chuck Etchels. Few guys out-pedal John Force, you did.
I was just scared to death. I wanted the money, and I wanted to win for Kendall, Super Winch, all of our sponsors. It's been a long dry spell, and I think we were just real hungry that time.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot, Steve, and great job by my crew, and love them all. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Here's a look at the funny car points now. As we said, John Force pretty much has this locked up. The battle in Pomona, as we march on to it, will be between Al Hoffman and Cruz Pedregon for second place. And John Force comes over to congratulate and receive a kiss from Chuck Etchels. And the top fuel cars getting set for their final. Larry Dixon on the far side. Scott Coletta closest to you. There's a good look at the Miller Genuine Draft car. Earlier today, Bob Fry visited with Don the Snake Prudhomme, the team's owner.
If you wonder why these guys look so serious as they get set for the next round of Top Fuel, it's because they're in the battle for the Winston Championship. Now let me put this into its proper perspective. The winner this year in the Winston Points Fund gets $200,000. The second place car, 40 grand. Snake, I know you're never thinking second place, but there's 160,000 reasons why you want to win this thing.
Yeah, well, there certainly is, but number one thing is we like to win the championship, of course, and what money's there we appreciate, but it takes a whole lot to run one of these things. But, you know, if it wasn't for Winston, we wouldn't have that money up, but we appreciate it and we're going to run for it.
Read between the lines, the Snake said the money doesn't mean anything to him. They just want to be the baddest dude on the block.
Got that right.
A.J. Foyt and Don Prudhomme in a league of their own. Larry Dixon Jr. this year has been in a league of his own. He's won 4 races, more than anybody else. But in the middle of the season, he had 3 races where he lost first round, and that just killed him. He's trying to make up for it here at Maple Grove. Final race of a wonderful weekend. Larry Dixon, something goes wrong with Dixon's car. It could have been a clutch, a lot of magnesium sparks. There they are, that's a clutch. Scott Coletta's won it for the second year in a row at a 480.
Dixon was well on his way to win number 5. He had Coletta by 0.02 of a second off the line. But as the car got to the halfway point, the clutch lets go on the Miller Genuine Draft entry, ending the night as the lights go out on the pipes and Coletta motors on to a 480, 298 miles an hour for the win. Scott Coletta picks up win number 4, and Steve's with him at the far end.
Scott, you ran your 480 pace. Nothing deterred you. You took out 2 of your closest pursuers, and we're talking. Congrats.
Oh, man, I tell you what. He was out there ahead of me, and then I thought, oh, well, you know, maybe he'll break because, I mean, he's run pretty consistent and stay with it.
Well, Scott Coletta did lengthen his points lead over Corey Mack, but it's far from over. Couple of rounds one way or the other, and Corey Mack could take over that points lead. Dixon and Dunn still continue to chase.
Remember, next weekend we'll be at the Sears Craftsman Nationals, Topeka, Kansas, a quicker and faster racetrack even than Maple Grove. But let's take a look back at the race that was the Keystone Nationals. For Bob Fry and Rob Shaheen, I'm Steve Evans saying so long from Reading. The American Sports Cavalcade is a production of Diamond P Sports and a presentation of the Nashville Network.